We are now looking at pitfalls. So we're heading for Q4, the end of the year. We think we're on track. Everything's looking good. What might surprise us and lead to a miss? Nancy, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, there's a lot of pitfalls that you need to avoid. I think one is denial, right? Just thinking, like Matt was saying, wishful thinking. I'm just going to keep working my deals and hope that they come in, and that I would say is denial. And so don't do that. Just be active. Actively take a look at your plan. And that comes to my very first point when we started the webinar, is this whole concept of your plan, and always be going back to your territory to see what has to happen for each of these deals to close. Are there any other opportunities that I can bring back to life that, again, are more in line with my ideal customer profile? So dig in, be involved, really think it through. Don't just respond and react to, your prospects' emails. Have a plan and work the plan.
Yeah, I think too often we don't ask the hard questions as deals progress. That it's sort of an extension of the idea of the wishful thinking that, okay, I've got a prospect. A chatty prospect is not a qualified prospect. Just because a prospect says they're ready to move forward doesn't mean they're going to move forward in the time you think it's going to take. So, are there enough members of the internal buying committee that are also saying, yes, they can move this forward? So Nancy talks a lot about the compelling event that really is driving urgency to get that deal across the line. Does that exist? Have you identified and enumerated what that looks like? Why is this going to close in Q4 versus Q1? You have to understand what the buying process looks like for that client. I think, we have a client that made a decision to buy a certain piece of technology, and they'd basically given it a verbal approval. And so the technology company was like, great, we got a deal, until that product had to go through a security review. And it was somewhat of a formality, but that security review was a 3-month process. So a deal that they thought was going to be a Q2 deal, hopefully is going to be a Q3 deal, might be an early Q4 deal. So, understanding not only sort of the true qualification nature of that opportunity, but understanding how that prospect buys and what that means for when that deal is going to land, those hard questions, I think it's important to make sure you've got answers to those, so you increase the confidence in your prediction of what you think you're going to hit before the quarter starts.
I couldn't agree more with that. I couldn't agree more, because so often we just don't want to ask the questions because we don't want to risk the customer or prospect saying something we don't want to hear. And that is a big mistake. You want to surface anything. You also want to ask them if they had to make a decision today, what would their recommendation be? You want them to start to verbalize things out loud, so that when they are talking to their management or they're trying to get the deal approved, they've already worked it out what that dialogue is going to be. They need more help than we probably always realize. We think, we just have to go through our conversation, sell them on the value proposition. If they agree and they see it, then we're good. But no, they need more help than that to understand how to overcome internal objections and to be armed with the right information, and even to think about the questions. This is very important because oftentimes they don't know what questions to ask, so they don't ask them. And then what happens is they go unanswered until the last minute when somebody raises their hand and says, well, what about this? And they can't answer it. And all of a sudden things come to a screeching halt.
Is there a role for marketing in this, Matt?
Yeah, I think that it's frustrating to me when I hear that marketers, throw up their hands at the end of the month, end of the quarter, and say, well, I've generated the leads, I don't have anything left to do. I think that the more complex the selling process, the longer your sales process, the more marketing needs to focus equally, if not more, of their energy on sales enablement, on creating not the most traffic and the most leads, but creating in some cases bespoke content that applies to a particular target and a particular account and a particular decision maker. Your job is the same as sales. Your job is to get deals across the line. And sometimes with those bigger, more complex deals, something that has a smaller audience effect can actually be the difference between making your quota and not. So I think that when sales and marketing can partner at those later stages of the sales process, especially when marketing can use that as a way of redefining their objectives and what's valuable for marketing, it's a huge win.
And Carl, if I can just add
Nancy?
something about account-based marketing and sales. If you have some large accounts and you have some sort of account-based plan where marketing is watching for people from that company that are coming to the site and they're able to alert the sales reps of that event, it's also important to provide salespeople with the right intelligence or a platform to get intelligence about those main accounts so that those salespeople can stay up to date. If any kind of trigger event happens, something in the news happens, they need to really stay on top of it. One of the big pitfalls is waiting too long between follow-up. But the opposite of that is following up a lot and just saying, hey, I'm calling to check in. You don't want to do that. You have to have some good information and insight so that you're a valuable partner in the process. So that needs to be made available to salespeople so they can be more intelligent and follow up in a more valuable way.
I'm glad you brought up ABM and account-based marketing and selling into our conversation. I think it's sometimes too easy for marketers to think, hey, we're in the volume business and the salesperson is working the individual deal. That's their responsibility. Maybe it's too easy to assume the salesperson knows everything that's going on in the account and has a complete handle on all the activity, and there's nothing that we can really add to that. But your point is that there's a lot going on that the salesperson probably doesn't know about, or at least needs to be alerted about, that marketing can help with.